Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Cosmos, and today is July 21st. We're going into Leo, and we have big news. We have big news, as everybody's heard, that there's a big shift for the Democratic Party leading up. And isn't this appropriate? We have this wonderful new panel, brand new spanking panel, that is U.S. Global Currents, Astrological Perspective. And we're going to be covering the Republican convention today, next month, the Democratic convention. And that's the big news because, as we know, and I ought to have all our panelists here, but I will identify for those that don't know, that Biden has gracefully stepped down from his nominee in support of Kamala Harris. And we'll identify that does feed into our whole talk today. However, we will be concentrating on Trump and Vance. So thank you, everybody, for attending. Stay tuned. This is a hot subject, and we're quite excited to just be able to transmit the astrology of it. This is time. We are now ready for U.S. Global Currents.
Examining significant United States domestic politics and foreign affairs through the astrological perspective of the celestial map of the sky to understand the impact on each individual around the globe. This is your U.S. Global Currents panel.
I'm Sue Rose Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, consultant, speaker, writer, vibrational astrology student, Dwarf Planet University graduate, Kepler Astrology Toastmasters Club charter member. I have a fine arts music degree plus a certificate in jazz. I'm an artist, musician, and certified color energy life coach. Especially, I love mythology and esoteric philosophies.
I'm Michael Bartlett, master metaphysical astrologer and the author of 2 books, Astrological Mavericks, You Have What It Takes to Change the World, and Astro Theater, a revolutionary look at the ancient art of astrology. Given my core energetic training, highly intuitive nature, 4 decades of business experience, over 2 decades of astrological wisdom, all give me an extensively resourced toolbox. I focus on esoteric and traditional astrology while incorporating the depths of the outer planets. I offer experiential intensives, mentoring, groups, readings, speaking engagements, and workshops. I was the past interim president of Kepler College and still do classes for them.
I'm Justin Crockett Elzie, an archetypal Jyotish astrologer, yoga and meditation teacher, and author. I combine both Western ancient astrology and modern psychological astrology with Eastern Vedic astrology, and I specialize in predictive, electional, and karmic astrology for individuals and couples. I also do in-depth astrological research into arcane astrological concepts, focusing on the mystical, occult side of astrology.
And I'm John Chinworth, a Seattle astrologer with more than 25 years' experience. I use a blend of evolutionary, traditional, and archetypal techniques and constantly attend workshops and lectures to further hone my skills. I hold an MFA in Poetics, an MA in Teaching, and an astrological diploma. I've lectured at NORWAC and served on the WSAA board. I have worked in general and special education classrooms, both as a teacher and mentor. I also enjoy reading, penning poems, riding a bike, and going on road trips around the great state of Washington.
Rock musician Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention says, "A mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not broken." Well, hot diggity. Yes, hot diggity is right. That's quite an American phrase. I love this. Is exciting. And we have here all of our panelists, including Robert J. Passetti. And here I'm going to scroll through these, which you can look at later. But Robert is a professional consulting astrologer. He's a visionary behind Deep Earth Astrology, and he specializes in vibrational and psychological techniques. And he infuses his deep connection to nature spirituality with his title of being the Grand Pendragon in the ancient order of Druids in America. He is the director of Magis Gathering in Gore, Virginia. You'll have to tell us when that is, Michael. Not Michael, Rob. And he is creating a Deep Earth Astrology Tarot, which is going to come out next year. Rob, we're so glad to have you too.
Thank you guys for having me. What a great panel. This is going to be awesome.
Yes, indeed. So here we are. Maybe I will mention that maybe we should speak a moment about President Biden here, because it is happening. And it really does fall exactly into this theme because of the fact that we were inspired after our USA Chiron Return program in April 21st. That coincided. It happened to be at 20 degrees Aries, our natal Chiron, and with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus within 45 minutes. And the second one will be just after the presidential election, and then following one after the election in February. So there were themes. Well, Chiron is a healer, and it joins our spiritual with the material, because the fact that it crosses like a bridge between inner and outer planets, Saturn and Uranus. And pardon me for always bringing up the word "and." I'm realizing I do this. But Chiron, remember, is about identity. Do I belong? Who belongs? This is a constant theme in the United States, and this was our whole program from Chiron in April 21st. Amazingly, not only does we consistently, throughout the 4 times that we have had past ones, struggled with that factor of our own identity, but the struggle with cultural or national first, but most essentially presidential issues, elections, contested deaths, births, and resignations. Shall we speak? Who wants to start? Justin.
I was waiting for Michael or Robert or John.
Okay.
Well, no, I think you pointed out something very important here that, who would have thought when we talked about this earlier this year that we were going to see an assassination attempt and then a resignation. So I think it just backs up what we were talking about as one of those themes,
And we have to understand, Biden is a Scorpio and his Pluto is in Leo. This was an extraordinarily difficult decision for him to make. Obviously, a lot of pressure was being placed on him to make this decision. But just thinking of, how difficult it was for him.
Absolutely. I kept thinking of that being a fixed sign. And the fact that when you are a Scorpio, you merge. That's part of your whole theme in life. And he has always put the United States first. So he really is once again. And it's amazing about illnesses. I know I had Alan Clay on, and Sedna has just entered Gemini, and which is a very abstract energy for us to identify with. However, he brought up the fact that through illnesses, there would be many changes. And I had to struggle with that. However, illness really, in the metaphysical terms, is dis-ease, something that is struggling with the core of our being that isn't synonymous with our well-being, and therefore we create. Granted, there's many, many factors here that I know it's not a silver bullet for every disease, and I don't want to open up an unhappy can of worms, but the fact remaining is it can be very deep and hidden, and meaning that here he had COVID, and I thought nothing happens at random. It really gave him time to sit back and think and listen. Michael and John, did you have comments?
Well, I think it's interesting that Chiron the USA has Chiron, I guess, in the 5th house in Aries. And I was trying to piece this together. I was thinking in the 5th house for a country, that's like artistic expression and also the children. And we have Aries there, which we're always looking for the hot new thing, the new exciting thing, how to express ourselves, but with Chiron there. how we express ourselves to heal might be a part of our a national makeup. Does that make any sense?
Oh, I love it because our North Node is in.
Like, what does that mean for Americans?
Our North Node is in Leo. It's 6 degrees. Our South Node is in Aquarius. Yes. Michael, did you have a comment? Thank you, John.
No, I completely agree with what everyone else is saying. It's just kind of an interesting S show to be sitting curbside to be watching as things kind of go on. And I know for me, the first hit that I had when I saw the attempted assassination was that it was completely staged. There was just something that was just so oddly choreographed as I witnessed it the first time. Just, the fact of him looking at his ear first rather than ducking. The way the Secret Service gathered around him and did this kind of almost Martha Graham-like protection covering, as opposed to the guys who were wearing all the riot gear. Why weren't they surrounding him? Because they would actually be able to protect him. It's just a couple of really odd.
There have been many.
I'm not a conspiratorial.
No,
person,
I know. And I will say, because this isn't quite the focus, and I realize,
right.
But one has to address what is happening as a pulse. And I will say that my husband, being a veteran in combat, had a lot of commentary to make about that too. That's nonstop. So we can have conversations. He really has his thoughts, which is mind-boggling because it was pretty disastrous. There were, unfortunately, 2 souls that perished besides the shooter, this wonderful fireman. So we are with great somber respect. And I know we all mean that.
Completely.
There were both sides coming out with a lot of ideas about what could have been, at first they were accusing the shooter of being Antifa. I only live about a half an hour from where the shooting took place. And I'm going to have you trust me that there is no Antifa in Western Pennsylvania, right? So, yeah.
Wow. Chiron in Aries, 8 years, is finishing up in 2026. It's a wound of identity, we might say, but it's healing those insecurities of fragmentation. So really, this is a major focus. A couple of quotes that I still will keep, and you can check back on our last April 21st program. David Hume, a Scottish philosopher, it's when we start working together that the real healing takes place. I love that. And Yoko Ono, Lennon, married to the great John Lennon, healing yourself is connected with healing others. I want to mention one other factor because it comes up, and that's an out-of-bounds planet. That was almost like your book there, Mavericks, Michael. But it is when it extends past the pathway of the sun. That's a declination of 23 degrees, 27 minutes, 26, 27. Series we are living at this moment for the next 6 months is out of bounds until early 2025. I think it's January, February. Donald Trump was born with a natal out of bounds Mercury and Pluto. But the United States, we have as a nation an out of bounds Venus, Mars, and Pluto. Here we have, go ahead, comments.
I was just going to say, because I just think it's funny when Trump took his nomination speech of unity, I would describe it as a complete Mercury, Pluto out of bounds experience. I'm going to talk about unity.
90 minutes.
I can only talk about it. Yeah. And I can only talk about it from being a Plutonian Leo, right?
About me. Yes. My
right.
problem. Yes. And pardon us, Republicans, we will try to, we're all in a huge new factor, aren't we? It's really amazing. Nonetheless, we know that Donald Trump is the nominee for the Republican Party, which has just commenced as of July 18th. He was born June 14th, 1946. This was just a few years after World War II, in Queens, New York, one of the boroughs, or one of the 5 boroughs, at 10:54 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, this is his chart. On the left, I have a few of the extras, 2 centaurs and a dwarf, which I've not really highlighted, but for those people that need to know.
Sounds like a circus act.
Yeah. So he immediately has, that's okay. He's born under a full moon. The North Node is conjunct his Sun and Uranus. The South Node is conjunct the Moon. Yes, at an eclipse. And you know that that's a very
Lunar eclipse.
powerful personality, lunar eclipse. So it immediately gives that a study for what does it mean to be born under a lunar eclipse. Not that you would be like him, but you would be a public figure and you would command a certain amount of presence. Besides the fact that he does have Leo rising automatically. Go ahead and comment on other things. What would you like to start off with saying about this chart of his?
I did
Mars Regulus. Oh, sorry.
I did a
Go
study.
ahead, John.
I went through all the presidents, and I lost this list, and I wish I would have kept it. But I looked up all the presidents, all the planets, and what they all had, and what was common. And common things were like Mars in Leo or Scorpio, and always a strong Uranus, and Uranus near the North Node was a common thing, or Sun near the North Node. So the strong Uranus, I think, is the Aquarian nature of the country, Moon in Aquarius, which I think is really interesting. And Donald Trump does have 3 of those signatures, Sun with North Node and Uranus there as well.
It's
If looking at this chart, you'd be like, it's kind of a presidential chart, believe it or not.
Yes.
And a strong Leo as well for the leadership kind of thing, being on stage kind of thing. So you see a lot of Leo too.
True. Rob? Yes. Thank you, John.
I always like to look at the conjunctions that are not as heavily aspected. And I look right at that Saturn, Venus, and Cancer. You know, Cancer is tribal by nature. And that Saturn and Venus kind of is a very tough love aspect. And his supporters love that about him. There's no denying that, the fact that, when we in VA, we talk a lot about, Saturn kind of gets things down to their truest level. And whether those are facts or not with Donald Trump is unimportant. It's all about that Venus messaging in Cancer, bringing the tribe together, saying what the tribe wants to hear to get them to be on board with him. And I think it's a strong conjunction for him in terms of his goals.
And
We're
it's not
very
aspected.
strong. We're a very strong Cancer country. I think we have like 4 planets in Cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. And it's just to comment before Michael and Justin chime in here that Venus, I put it in black. It's not aspected. It's just hanging together. It's very true. It's like almost a joint singleton. Justin and Michael, you want to pop in?
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Saturn's Venus in the 12th house to me is, completely his relationship with the bittersweet relationship with his father that was, not really reflective or really well supportive. But of course, I mean, the thing that always moved me being a maverick person and being about people on the angles is his Regulus and his Mars right on his ascendant in Leo. I mean, it's just, who else is there? And his moon in Sagittarius speaks to that, as Gemini, Uranus, North Node. I mean, he's very much, there's not much of a diver in this chart. He's someone who really is going to, I mean, it's like they say, his how he would make decisions as a president was whatever the last idea that was presented to him, because it was the thing that remained in his mind.
I want to add before
and yet he has Moon conjunct the South Node, which adds some kind of depth that's not being acknowledged and used or something. I think that's really interesting to think about.
Or else he's very emotional and just can't let go of certain things. But this is my take of it. But I will say also that Regulus, which is now at 0 degrees Virgo, right on my Saturn, the side of Regulus is that if you may have claim to fame, but if it's all about you, nah, you're chopped. You're toasties. It doesn't work that way. Justin?
Yeah, no, I wanted just one thing about the whole Cancerian thing here with the Saturn and Venus is that, there's a thing about that where a person, sometimes you'll hear Trump say, I'm doing this for you. So there's this Cancerian manipulation with emotions with the family and sacrifice and everything else there. So there's a darker side to that. And I might note, we'll talk about it a little bit later. I don't want to forget this point though, because I had written it down, was that in the composite chart between him and Vance, there's a Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Cancer.
Okay, well, let's look at Vance then.
Can I say one other thing?
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. The thing that jumped always out to me with Trump's chart was the conjunction between the Chiron and Jupiter and Juno there, because that's the wound of relationships within the collective, and that's his wound. And of course, we know that's being transited this year by the lunar south node. So he's that's always going to be a big issue with him ultimately.
Okay, thank you. We are now looking at J.D. Vance. He was born August 2nd, 1984. He's 39 years old. He happens to be the youngest in this century elected, or not elected, well, as a nominee, but he's about the second or third youngest if we look overall of the senators. It was 6:34 a.m. Eastern Time. He was born in Middletown, Ohio. What stands out to me, I'll just start off, is that moon. It's a singleton. He is a rogue moon person, and his moon is in Libra. So I wonder if he projects a lot, if it doesn't have anybody talking to that moon, not as a major. The moon is always going to be in relationship with vibrational astrology. We know that it's very dynamic, but just on the Ptolemy aspects, and even it's not aspected.
I think one of the most important things we have to start off with this chart is that we don't actually have a very precise birth time for it. So that sun conjunct ascendant, take that with a grain of salt, because to me that's always kind of a sign of authenticity, and that's not something I see in the rest of the chart.
Right.
Good
well,
point.
I think they were just doing that because it was a rectification factor using it, just the sunrise. Sure. The thing that jumps out to me in this chart is the Chiron on the south node, and how it's opposing Uranus, because we know that Uranus is a higher vibration planet with communication.
North node, not south node. North node.
I'm sorry, north node.
Yeah, right. That's okay.
North node. Uranus on the south node, but then out there squaring Mercury. That whole T-square of communications, the fact that the guy's written a book, and I think this really comes down to, we got to listen to this guy's silver tongue and discern whether it's true or not. I know Robert's met him or listened to him before.
Yes,
I am from the Northern Appalachia region. Back in 2015, late 2015, 16, he was doing the book tour for the Hillbilly Elegy. I went. The book was great. When you read the book, you obviously see the storyteller aspect there, but you would imagine it was written by something like a Capricornian figure, somebody like a Wendell Berry, or some kind of earth poet that is down into the people. But there were some red flags, about what the cause of some of these issues were, but that really wasn't a major theme. But when I went to the Q&A, that's when the story kind of revealed itself. And as he was going through the Q&A, it started going in a direction where he was almost blaming the immorality of the people of that land for their misfortune. He was blaming their lack of engagement with capitalism, with the problems they brought upon itself. And then you find out, we're looking at the chart right now, Middletown, Ohio is a suburb of Cincinnati. It is a rather upper middle class. It's not part of Appalachia. Any of the stories he did, he was bringing in his kind of generational fodder, which turned out to not be true. And there's been many people who have written reproaches to what he wrote in Hillbilly Elegy, as far as what the actual facts of the matter are. And Mars and Scorpio.
We're also looking at, he has Mercury square the nodes, so the use of your language and how you communicate and what you are saying, what are you using that for? I think that comes into play in this life. It's a continuing
Jupiter
challenge.
Trine. Oh, sorry. And the Jupiter trine Mercury, and the Venus trine Neptune. I mean, he is a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
and he actually is able to. He's actually able to tap into something with people. I mean, I think that's where the Scorpio Mars really helps him, and then Pluto at 29 degrees of Libra. That's a very significant. I mean, he's quite a little manipulator. He's got kind of one of the first things I saw of him is like, of course, Trump would pick someone who looks like maybe this person has done things to minors. There's just a little bit of a creepy factor when you look at him, and I think sometimes I think the hard part with a lot of these individuals, and especially, I mean, we're talking at Moon, Pluto in Libra. Can I accept the truth of what my image is? Can I really accept myself that isn't pretty, that isn't as it should be put together? I mean, there's a lot of rigidity, and the Republican Party is really big on presenting this masky kind of a thing, like, oh, we don't do these things. And the next thing you know, you hear in the tabloids, oh, this person did this and this person did that. Well, of course, because they're trying to hold these images in that Libran way that are really unsustainable, and really at this point in our presence of how we're living our lives as human beings isn't really working very much. But they're holding on with life, with dear force as they can.
Well, the shadow side of Libra definitely can be projecting, because it is self and other, and without taking responsibility. And that goes back to the comment that you made, Rob. I keep saying Michael, Rob, pardon me. And that is that square between the Sun and Saturn, fixed Leo, Scorpio. So perhaps he would present right off the bat a very staid or curtailed, definitive message at first that seemed Capricornian. I
don't think it's at first. I think that that Libra moon is going to make him look extremely stable to the public. I mean, we're seeing these people when they're under an extraordinary amount of pressure, and regardless of what side you're on, I mean, these candidates have to get up in front of all of these people, and they have the anger of 50% of the population working against them. And a Libra moon in this climate can be they're not looking for anger from the Trump ticket. They're looking for stability. And, that is what they lack.
Yes. And come to think of it, it's only 6 degrees from our natal U.S. chart. We are 12 degrees. So probably as a nation, I'm just thinking it really responds to that factor.
And I want to point out the positive aspect of, I'm sorry, Michael. I just really quickly, I want to point out the positive aspect of Jupiter-Neptune conjunction there, because it's very indicative of artists, leaders. That's a very give me thing right there for him. He got the golden ticket for being, being noticed or recognized in the collective well with that.
Unless there's something big, we're going to go to the composite. Is everybody
the only other thing I was going to say, it would be really great to see what time he was born, because he, basically the whole of his chart is within 150 degrees of the dial. So there's a major
very
concentration, very compact. And so it'd be really interesting to see where that does lay out, whether it's lying actually like this way, where it's actually more subjective and below the horizon, or whether it's flipped or.
Yes. And where it is on the whole horoscope. That's a good point.
Michael, you should be the one to rectify the chart at some point, since you're the angles guy. You could probably do really well at that.
We'll have a show. That's good. Here is a synastry, the bi-wheel. And, we are at the halftime, aren't we? Well, I guess we'll need to come back, and we'll just try to speed through what we can. And this is hot stuff in that it's very moment. Uranus doesn't care about past and present. Uranus is in both of these charts hugely, and it is with us today. Come back. This is U.S. Global Currents with John Chinworth, Crockett Elzie, Michael Bartlett, Robert J. Pastetti, and myself, Sue Minahan. Thanks. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. Currently, we are in the period of Cancer. By leaving a cycle based on connecting mental communication to the external,
The energy of Cancer involves emotions, which create our personal story through our emotional associations and attachments. As a cardinal water sign that is nurturing, Cancer needs to process emotions in one's own internal rhythm of cycles in order to complete an evolution.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to the Ananda Institute of Living Yoga, we cover the world of animals. This week, July 28th, it's an encore presentation. Tune in to hear our last healing show with Dr. Nils Rasmussen and Linda Rasmussen. Together, they helped listeners and their animal friends with emotional, behavioral, and physical issues, and you can receive a surrogate healing just by listening and following along with Linda's instructions. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific on KKNW. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Multicultural, multidimensional even. Alternative Talk 1150.
Hi, we're back, and I will correct myself. We're still in the month of Cancer. Leo won't begin until the 23rd of the month. So, I boo-boo. Okay, we are going to continue with this synastry, and then I'll just follow along. Let's do the synastry, and then we'll talk about ourselves. Donald Trump is on the inside, and Vance is on the outside. There's Mars square Mars. We may as well talk about that, and then we can go on. Possibly.
Well, I'll just start it off with saying I wanted to start off with the Sun-Pluto conjunction there because I have some experience with that with my own father a little bit there, in a different aspect. But to me, that's actually auspicious. I like to say, who's your daddy here with that? I think that Trump here is definitely there's where Trump is going to really affect him in a way, however you want to take that. I mean, there's a real, how do you want to say, how a person molds another person. And I think, so that's the one, there's a couple other things, but I'll just shut up and let everybody else.
I agree with you. Absolutely. It's transformational. And look at it just immediately from the fact that he's in the spotlight. He could have just gone by like many other senators because he's young and whatnot. There's that one in New York, the lady, she has a long name, which is abbreviated. So, yes, I agree. Go ahead, folks.
Just to add to that, what Justin said, I mean, bringing that sun on top of his Pluto, there's another factor to J.D. Vance in that, he is supported by several billionaires, including Peter Thiel. He is very much the golden child being presented to Trump to bring the billionaire class onto his team. And listen, there's no denying that Trump loves his Pluto. And that kind of plutocratic nature of J.D. Vance, that he brings in both that kind of silver tongue with the union working class, and also the backing of the billionaire class, bringing gold and troves to his campaign, is something that I think was very attractive to him.
Michael or John, did you want to, or shall we go on to another?
The same, yeah. Go on to the next.
Okay.
Well, can I say one other thing then? Because you did mention the Mars squared Mars.
Yes.
So kind of looking at that, I think at some point, and I think I was talking to Robert and Michael about this, or John a little bit earlier about this, how it's like there can be a really good relationship, but behind the scenes, there's going to be a stabbing at some point here. This is almost that archetype in mythology about how eventually the sun eclipses the father here, or the sun takes out the father. So I definitely, Mars squared Mars just means there's differences in direction at some point. That can be warning,
I think it's interesting
repeated with Vance's Saturn to Trump's Pluto, because one of the few planets that actually can take on Pluto is Saturn.
most interesting. Oh, go ahead. Who's
Just real quick on the two Marses, Trump's Mars and Leo, the king, the commander, and then Vance's Mars and Scorpio is like a power behind the throne kind of thing to me. That's an interesting dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
More a low-key kind of, I don't know.
The Emperor and Vader.
Oh, I know. It was the mythology. Yes. If we go back to the Chiron, which was when Chiron US return, which happened at the same time of Jupiter and Uranus. Uranus was usurped by Saturn as the ruler, and then Jupiter usurped Saturn's power as the Olympians. So this is very much part of the dynamics.
And if you look at, again, back to angles and, their vertex point there of Vance is right on his, south node and moon along. And of course, the Chiron Uranus conjunction here between the two of them is amazing. I mean, you talk about maybe some mistruths. I mean, you just opened the book to it here.
I will, yes. And I'm looking at the moons, and because you brought up the fact of Vance's Neptune, which means big, huge, grand visions of outside the box of past and whatnot, which would feed very much as a storyline to augment Trump's purposes. And then that his own moon, perhaps healing our wound. I don't know I'm going to stop right there. Any other comments? We need to move along.
I think the moon,
we should talk about Vance's moon on Chiron.
John, just say.
Yeah, I think the lunar relationships, I mean, both show like kind of a bromance between the two of them, to be honest.
Oh.
Okay. And John?
I just didn't want to lose my thought. I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry about that. I'm fascinated by Vance's moon on Trump's Chiron. I think that's really quite interesting.
Yep. And Jupiter. It's an unconditional love aspect, a golden aspect.
Okay. Well, then there's hope in the forest. Okay, I'm going
at least
on.
for the two of them.
Yeah, right. The forest of thought, see the trees for the forest.
Definitely dynamic charts between each other.
Thank you. So here we have the Davidson with Donald Trump and the United States. We'll look at this. It happens to have a 14-degree ascendant in Libra. The sun is within 10 degrees of the south node and Venus, which is the flip of what Trump's would be. But this is really looking at how the United States and Trump would fit. We have the south node being in Cancer is very tribal, and it is the whole storybook of apple pie and etc.
Well, Sue, I know you're kind of big on Eris, and I'm just curious what you would think about that Chiron-Eris conjunction there.
Well, Eris is inclusion and exclusion, both sides. She was excluded, so she brought herself forward, meaning it's about being inclusive of everybody. And you might say in Chiron, that's where we're wounded, and we need to shift our focus from our personal little wound. Perhaps he feels he wasn't included in XYZ with his dad, even though his dad gave him so much money. It's hard to know that, but it's in the fifth house. So therefore, I would say that when we heal our Chiron, it's when we begin to realize that our wound can be in service to others. So perhaps that's what he meant to say when he said, let's have unity, although hadn't had time to really integrate perhaps into his whole soul, I would say, because most of his 93-minute intro nominee talk was not all about unity. It was really slamming Pelosi and a lot of
And just
Biden and others.
from a pure synastry standpoint, we're talking about Donald Trump's relationship with the United States of America. If I was giving a synastry consultation to somebody, I don't know how far I would tell them to go with a vertex conjunct Pluto. Okay, that could definitely be a very destroying factor.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and with the Juno there, that's the relationships really destroying the structure relationships there,
and the relationship with our land.
I will take you and I will feed you and take care of you, but I might be poisoning you along the way.
Little arsenic. No, dear. Okay.
Well, and that could
It's only bitter almonds. It's only bitter almonds.
That could represent how he wants to pull the U.S. out of NATO. Just kind of destroy those relationships. I think that's a good astuteness with that Pluto.
Even more close to home.
Established loyalties, yeah.
Yeah, a big theme of Project 2025 and his policies is selling off a lot of public land. I mean, that's definitely seen there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. The next one. Oh, these are our contestants, or not contestants.
Wait, where's my buzzer? Where's my buzzer? I'm missing my buzzer.
I don't have Mercury retrograde for nothing in Gemini. Thank you. Oh my goodness. The panelist with the there we go.
Good job, Nathan.
Stand up. The first panelist really standing up is Michael Bartlett, and he has Astrological Mavericks, which is a wonderful book, and also the Relationship Guys podcast with Justin Elzie, and you can find that on YouTube at the Relationship Guys. Then the next contestant panelist standing up is John Chinworth with Sky Path Astro. And he is a lecturer. He spoke at NORWAC and the San Francisco Astrology Group.
Society, I forget what they're called.
Yes, indeed. We have Justin Crockett Elzie standing up, and he is an archetypal Yodish astrologer, consultant, workshop teacher, author, and he has on Instagram a monthly Mars forecast, a weekly lunar forecast, and Ask the Astrologer series, besides the fact that he's also with Michael on this new Relationship Guys. Both Justin and I are on Liz Mouchette's new program. I'm on the Star Sisters Talk Over Tea episodes. What happened to I didn't put in deep earth astrology before I go on here.
That's okay. I'm here. I'm just a guest. We're all
good.
Yes.
tell us what you have coming
deepearthastrology.com. We're working on integrating a lot of the tenets of astrology into the nature philosophy. We got a good team, and we're putting out the tarot deck in 2025. We're really excited about that. You can sign up for the mailing list at deepearthastrology.com.
Oh boy, I'm on it. I'll get there. Back to our convention. And did I miss something pertinent that somebody wants to spout out that's starting up? Do you have any, Michael, do you have a lecture or talk somewhere? Okay. Besides the wonderful YouTube and etc. Realism, this is John Fisk, is not a matter of any fidelity to an empirical reality, but of the discursive conventions by which and for which a sense of reality is constructed. So it is what we put our attention to, isn't it? That brings up the focus. And we are talking about this convention that just passed. We looked at this. I think we looked at, no, I know what I was going to, yeah, we haven't looked at this. This is.
No, we did look at this. So this is the
we
data.
Did. Okay. I repeated in case. All right. And did we look at the composite with Donald Trump? No. Okay. Here is a composite. We only between the two candidates for the Republican Party. Ah, boy. I suppose, what is it? It is this Uranus Juno there in the second house in Virgo in their composite chart that is square in an action-oriented toggle between the south node of the big opinionated ideas and the north node of communicating them. to the groups.
One of the most interesting things about this chart, in my opinion, is that we bring Mercury, Venus, and Chiron together in the 12th house. This we would, sometimes we might see this as okay for a relationship. This is a negative thing, but as far as what JD Vance's role is going to be in their relationship, it's going to be to add a level of sophistication to Trump's sloppy messaging. It's bringing beauty to words, and they're going to speak to the plight of the individual and their wound. And they're not looking to get female suburban voters at this point. Okay. They're looking to speak to the people that are wounded in this country, that feel like they have been slighted by the elite, and gather them and speak to the collective unconscious in that matter. And I think that bringing that Venus, especially in Leo, that Venus, that Mercury, and that Chiron together is going to be very potent, especially since the sun is in Cancer. Okay. It's the country's Cancer. And we talked about how powerful that idea of tribalism was before. So I think that's a very important house for this composite.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing that jumped out to me, this chart, I was thinking back to a prior show we did where we looked at I forget what it was on Astrojam. At some point we looked at the guy that was known as Dracula, the Impaler. Because what jumped out to me in this chart that had some semblance was all this Virgo there. You got this Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Virgo with this Uranus. This, if Pence was like, didn't get anything done, this is a hardworking thing. This is the dictator aspect here. This is where this is change right there. If it comes about, that's the drive right there. I think that's pretty important.
And then you look at Neptune, Moon, and Jupiter, that always expands everything. So Neptune is the big visions of just the what's greater than life, and the Moon is the past. So this is again, make America great, and right in our 4th house.
And all these planets are in hidden houses, the 12th and the 4th. So it's like there might be a sense of, gosh, where is all this coming from? You know what I mean?
Interesting. The 12th house, I want to add, Maurice Fernandez is very strong, and I was a student of his classes program. And that is that the 12th house holds a real claim to fame potentiality because it is the collective, and it is that message. So if they can address, this wouldn't be 100%. We already know we're 50%. But the fact that it's true, Rob, that you bring up too, that Trump isn't interested in the ladies sitting in the back. They're already going to be voting. He's looking at those undecided people and the ones that don't vote to tip the scales. That's some strategy there. Shall we go on?
Michael has it.
Oh, go ahead.
I think the other thing is it's another highly concentrated chart, and to mirror what Justin said as far as all that Virgo, we're talking also Leo and Scorpio. So this is a real focused intensity, I would say a real set agenda that they will make things happen. So this is like something that there's just, I think it'd be that they will actually accomplish a lot, and especially as what Robert said about what they bring to the table, what Vance brings to the table now to add to what Trump really actually needs.
Thank you. I hope everybody can see this appropriately. This is a tri-wheel. On the inside, we have the United States. July 4th, 1776, that's our Declaration of Independence. At 5:10 p.m., that's a Sibley chart in Philadelphia. That was the capital at the time. In the middle is that Davidson chart now between Trump and Vance. That's different than the composite. That for folks to know, that's where it's actually got a time and a location. We can progress it. We can do anything with a Davidson chart. On the outer is the shooting that happened in Butler, Pennsylvania at 6:11 p.m. on July 13th, just a week ago, I think. Yes. So it's been a fast track, hasn't it? It really is that chironic, as we all brought up, and that with the presidential changes, with this shooting, whether it's however it was presented, it is a reality. Unfortunately, 2 people passed. And now we have, as a result, too, from the debate, which wasn't much of a debate in my mind. Anyway, we have Trump, but we have, thank someone help me here, Biden stepping down in lieu of the great Kamala Harris. So
I'll start here if I may. So
please.
what really kind of jumped me out initially here was went right into the Saturns in the outer of the July 13th shooting. You know, we've got Saturn Nessus right there in Pisces, and that Trump,
in the third house.
And the Trump and Davidson, Trump and Vance's Davidson chart is right there with that same Saturn in Pisces with the Chiron. So that was something that really jumped out with me there on that one.
Tell us more, Justin, because I know you do speak about Nessus, who is a centaur, half man, half human, horse, like Chiron. And
well, that it relates to abuse or boundaries here, and so we see here that this is a time when people need to set more boundaries, but there's obviously a boundary that's been crossed here with this assassination attempt, and it's a wound. We got Chiron right there, and I think they're going to use that because with the Saturn.
Oh yes, I see. Yes, okay, thank you. Mars, the U.S. natal Mars in the 7th house, they're at 21 degrees Gemini, which is always a huge trigger for the United States in many ways with our political, it's action. Thank you. Mars is action. It's going to assert itself one way or the other. And it is conjunct the Republican nominees, Jupiter, of ideology, of belief systems, of righteousness, of religion.
Yeah. You also have the in the shooting chart, you have the Mars in Taurus, definitely, of the body, opposite the Scorpio moon in the Davison chart. Talk about Mars adding fire to the absolution of Trump to kind of move forward with all of this, putting the fist up in the air after it happened, I am here forever, it's just, a Scorpio moon can be a very potent thing as far as commitment and dedication and absolution to a cause. And that Mars opposition there in Taurus is very speaking to that.
And that 6th, 12th house, folks.
Yeah, and to support what you're saying, Rob, look at the Mercuries there. They're both in Leo between the shooting and the Davidson chart. They're both in, the Mercuries are conjunct Sinistry there.
That messaging is like, okay, now we're here. Now this is what we needed,
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Interestingly,
that's why it seems a little so staged. And then the sun's there as well. Sorry, Sue.
No, that's okay. The Mars, look at Mars in the 10th house at the MC there in their Davidson chart. It's right there at the MC.
Right. And someone's head was hit, right?
Yeah.
I always find the MC Mars combination tends to be someone losing their head or an attempt at someone's head.
We can continue talking, but I see that our great navigator, Nate, our sound and producer here with the KKNW, has prompted us forward. And just to mention that Michael Bartlett, you can find him at Core Michael, Justin at his name, Justin Crockett Elzie, John at Skypath Astro, Rob at Deep Earth Astrology, and myself at Talk Cosmos. We thank you so much, everybody, for signing up with our newsletters, because progressively next year, the schedule won't be so rote. I'm going to talk about how we're going to have to adjust different things, but we have a whole potpourri of great shows, and I just hope that the United States and the globe really find stability in however you can. The news can be very disconcerting, but if you do take this time, it's still in Cancer, to nurture yourself before we present our new thoughts of dreams we can find that moment of peace that we can then be strong forward. Any comments? Blessings to all. And thank you so much. We're excited to be here to serve it.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.